The Alliance guys, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, the Alliance guys have finally reunited, and it feels so right. Jaden, DKM, welcome to the show, fellas.
It's your pleasure, I'm sure.
I know you've missed me.
We missed you dearly. Didn't you hear the exuberance coming from my voice? Of course I missed you guys.
I'm not even sure who you are.
Well, I'm the hostess with the mostest. I'm Jay Cal. Online with me is Jaden and, of course, DKM. Now, DKM has been a huge fan of the NWA for many, many years. He was actually in the building when Kerry Von Erich won his World's Heavyweight Championship.
That is correct. Part of the largest crowd to see wrestling at that time.
In the great state of Texas. What stadium was that? That was that's not where the Cowboys used to play, was it?
Yeah, it was where the Cowboys used to play. It was the old Texas Stadium.
Okay. They don't play there anymore. So this has been kind of an interesting week for the NWA, for me, for everyone involved. First and foremost, thank you to the NWA for putting my handsome mug on your TV. I'm sure it popped at least 2 different people watching the show. That's pretty cool. A lot of people were messaging me on the first episode. They started doing that and said, "Hey, Jay, why aren't you on there?" And I said, "Hey, man, there's 9 weeks of television. If they get to me, they get to me. If they don't, they don't. It's not a big deal." But it's kind of cool to see your face on TV. Too bad we didn't do video chat with you guys so that you could have been on the TV show as well.
Well, yeah, I don't want to be on the TV anyway. That'll increase the ratings too much, and since I'm not getting paid to do it, they don't deserve my pretty face.
Well, they certainly don't deserve your face. I do agree with that.
Nobody deserves that. No. It's good to be back, guys. I'm so happy you guys are here. I told you guys that the Alliance blog has a TikTok page, right?
Yes, I saw that video, and you deserve to get shot.
Yeah.
Thanks. That's the one with all the teenage girls prancing around or something like that.
Hey, someone's got to turn their messages off because I'm hearing the vibrations. I guess, TikTok is a weird thing. I've heard a lot of people talk about it. I was under the impression that it was like a much younger audience, like 10 to 13-year-olds. And the idea was that, hey, if you could hook a wrestling fan today, you'll have someone spending their money on wrestling the rest of their life. So my idea was to try to capture that fan base and see if they would be interested in following the NWA with me. And for like last month and a half, I've been producing content with 0 views, and I honestly was getting discouraged. But it turns out today, just by adding a few photos and a few filters, that I got some hits. So I guess I'll be on TikTok for a little while longer.
And we are all excited about that fact.
I could tell.
Yeah.
No, well, look, this is called Talk NWA, right? So we're supposed to talk about the NWA. We're talking about the NWA power, obviously. Yeah, that's very difficult to say. Power. DKM, your turn.
Sounds like you're freezing.
It's 3 R's, guys, so let's not overdo it. It's power. Come on.
There you go.
It's not that hard.
Sounds like you're stuttering.
I used to stutter, so it fits.
So, overall, the show, what I noticed is, and I've kind of been tracking the numbers, the live viewership seems to be down a little bit. But it's still doing well in terms of people who come back to it week after week. And then again, the way that, broadcast TV, you have that moment, that opportunity to showcase what you're showcasing. With YouTube, it's a little bit different. The way that we digest the content is different. And the way that it actually makes money is different too. They don't have to sell advertisers to watch the program. They literally just have to have people continue to watch. And with over, I think the first episode's right at like, I think it was 500,000. Can anyone confirm that?
I don't have it in front of
me.
me.
I can check it out.
All right.
I'm
Well,
on
DK's
it too,
checking it out. All right. Well, I'm the lazy one. I'm not doing anything. I'll just talk instead. But
Sure.
one thing's for sure. I'm glad the commercials that are on there aren't being paid to be part of that, except for maybe the Universal Academy. Those other commercials, I kind of somewhat liked the Tony Falk one, but the one this week, no, definitely not my type of thing.
Well, you don't need the product. You don't have any need to make your hair go invisible.
Yeah, it's true. That's because I'm solar powered. I don't need the product, and I definitely don't like the spiritual advisor. In fact, I'm gonna be blunt right now, and I'll just say straight up, this episode was kind of the Godfather Part 3 for me right now. While the first two were enjoyable, this one was definitely a disaster. I did not like it.
Wow. So just a heads up, as we were talking, the NWA Power, the episode 1, which featured Tim Storm versus Nick Aldous, did have over 495 views on, and that's on YouTube. And then the last week's episode, Clickbait, had 279. This week, it's just a day ago, is at 122,000. And this was the title, The Twilight of Tim Storm. So you can't really speak to the numbers of views because it's only been a day, but there has been a little bit of drop off on the live numbers. Now, Jaden, you said you're not happy with the show. You actually called it The Godfather, the third version of the third sequel of The Godfather.
Second sequel, but the third Godfather, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. So what did you like? Let's talk about that first. You know, normally we're proactive about the positive, but let's talk about the negative. What didn't you like?
This was more of a sports entertainment show. I don't watch the NWA for sports entertainment. I watch it for professional wrestling, and it was way more sports entertainment than professional wrestling. While there was some good stuff that I'll definitely talk about, some stuff I enjoyed. The commercial, the thing with Aaron Stevens. Yeah, and then some of the other stuff was just kind of just a little too AEW for my liking.
Oh. Now, Jaden, DKM, we had talked offline, and you weren't a big fan of this episode either. What are some of the things you didn't like about this episode?
Well, I overall liked the show. I didn't love it. I'm not into the whole let Camille speak angle going on with the serious journalist and
Joe Galley, clickbait Joe Galley.
Yeah, clickbait Joe Galley. I have nothing against Joe Galley, and I have nothing against Camille, and I have nothing against Nick Aldous. I don't like this story, so to speak. There's only a couple ways it can pay off, and I'm not really thrilled with either one of them.
Right.
And so, we'll leave that to the viewers' imaginations. But, and then of course it had Josephus on it, and everybody knows my feelings on Josephus. He has a part to play somewhere else, not in front of the camera.
Yeah, so we had somebody before says, "Oh, how can somebody not like Josephus?" Well, there's another person that doesn't like Josephus. It's because he's goofy. To me, this wasn't, and Josephus is a good part of this reason. It reminded me more of Tuesday Night Titans than Georgia Championship Wrestling.
I mean, for me personally, one of the things I enjoyed about, again, you're saying Tuesday Night Titans, and you don't care for the Josephus gimmick, and that's fine. I'm not a huge fan of Josephus either. What I did like is when Colt Cabana came out dressed as James Storm. His the best line of the night was sorry about my damn gimmick. That made me laugh. I thought that was hilarious. And apparently you guys didn't care for that one too much.
Well, they used to say funny doesn't make money, and unfortunately it does. It just doesn't make the money like being serious or being treated as a sport does. yes, comedians make lots of money because that's what it's supposed to do, but I don't think you've seen very many humorous situations before the 1980s when the WWE started doing that goofy garbage. But the TNT got canceled real quickly because it was stupid and because it didn't draw the ratings like the other shows they did.
Well, there have always been gimmick wrestlers that have included some comedy in their time, but they've also, and I didn't have a major issue with what Colt Cabana did. I mean, it's not my cup of tea, but not everything is. Okay, that's life. It's just, I don't know. To me, the whole episode seemed a little bit off. And look, I understand this is their third episode. By then, they were 3 hours into, or longer than that, into taping TV. They're still trying to find themselves. They're trying to develop, stories. There really hasn't been an NWA storyline outside of the world title going before this. So, they're finding themselves, and I'm willing to give them time to find themselves. But, I also have to be honest and say, what works for me and what doesn't work for me.
Right.
This episode, not so much, worked for me.
And the thing, you just made a great point, and let me reiterate that too. This was hour number 3 of a 2 days worth of television, and I'll be honest, the folks that I was there with, we all agreed that it really didn't find their stride until night number 2, and you'll see a big difference. I think you will, where it just things were clicking a little bit better on that second night of taping. So the arguments that you're bringing up, I mean, you're not wrong. Whatever you don't like that's what the thing about wrestling. There is a flavor for everybody. And if the NWA is missing out on this one, and it's one of those things where Jaden said, like, well, I don't like the fans in Atlanta, but you know what? Those fans are kind of determining what's going to be popular on that show, because the reaction that certain individuals got elevated those individuals and literally changed the way the show was produced. Some of the angles that they were working on kind of got scrapped in the middle of the show just because of the way that certain characters got over.
Well, the adaptability is what a good studio wrestling needs. It's what professional wrestling needs nowadays. They don't need so much scripted. Yeah. They need more to do on the fly. And honestly, it should be a little combination of both. There should be some long-term planning, and there should be some adaptability to adjust that course when waves and ships and other things come crashing towards you. It definitely, I think it's something, a combination of both, and that's a good thing to hear. And the fact that they haven't hit their stride until the second night does give me a lot of hope. It wasn't what I hoped for, and I have a feeling with this question mark gimmick, it's going to be even less so.
Yeah, I'm going to venture a guess to say that you're not going to like it.
Yeah, I kind of already know I'm not going to like it, but, we'll see. I didn't like it when Jim Neidhart was who, and I definitely don't like this question mark gimmick, but we'll see. Maybe at least if the rest of it can be good, then I could deal with maybe something. Not everything is going to come out in a meal that you're going to like. I definitely don't like lettuce and tomato on my sandwich. Doesn't mean other people don't, so.
I don't.
Yeah.
But, well, and I think to add on to that a little bit, it's good to listen to the fans. But,
yes,
in a hot environment with, those weren't really Atlanta fans. Those were fans from all across the country who were kind of hardcore NWA fans.
This is true.
Such as yourself and things like that. And so it was, you get into it, and you got to do things also to kind of keep yourself energized for however many hours it took to do the tapings and the
right,
and VIPs and everything like that. The thing what you got to find the balance in is a fad thing, a fad gimmick. I mean, like, I understand question mark or whatever he went by was kind of, caught the wow of the fans for the night and things like that. And, maybe it'll be a good gimmick. I don't know. I'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
But it could also be one of those things where, okay, yeah, they loved him tonight, but now they've watched, 9 episodes and they get in, you come back tapings in December and they bring him out and they're like, yeah, you were fun the first night, not so much tonight. You got to find your balance in those things.
Right. So to that point about finding balance, let's talk a little bit about the show and what actually was taking place on this episode. Now, we had a first-time matchup, Marty Bell, who has challenged for the women's title in the past. She took on Crystal Rose. DKM, your thoughts?
I thought it was a pretty decent match. I'm not familiar with Crystal Rose or whatever her name is, so I didn't know what to expect from her. Honestly, she got a little more offense in than I was anticipating. Not necessarily a bad thing, made the match kind of competitive. It was a good standard studio match as far as I'm concerned. Not going to rate 5 stars by anybody, but, for an opening match on the TV, it was good. It played its part.
Jaden?
Well, that's what studio wrestling is, kind of what it's best at and what it should be for. I've seen Marty Bell in the past in person and in many different places, and she got over her moves, she got over personality, she got over what she needed to do. While Crystal Meth or Crystal Rose or whatever her name was, I don't. The fact that they were saying that she was a goth gimmick and that she loves Smashing Pumpkins, that's kind of like saying that you're a gimmick of superheroes and your favorite superhero was Dump Man or something like that, or Powder Toast Man. But still,
I think they called her a grunge fan. And then, it's the same point like you made. Smashing Pumpkins isn't grunge music. No. So I don't know if that was just a way to cheap plug Mr. Billy Corgan there. I personally thought the match was just okay. Crystal Rose and Marty Bell, to me, I think was actually better than Ashley Vox versus Allison Kay, but not by much. So far, the women's division hasn't impressed me. And I'll probably get heat from that. Somebody from Chicago will probably send me death threats. But so far, the women's division has been lackluster at best. Now, I will say this, it improves greatly on night number 2. But, that's not for another 2 more weeks. So we'll have to wait and see for that. The next match was actually one that I really enjoyed. 2 guys who I'm really big on, and that would be Caleb Conley, who Jaden and I have been waxing poetic about for the last 2 or 3 weeks, and 2 weeks. And then D-Man Parker. D-Man Parker is he's a Canadian. He's wrestled actually internationally for DDT in Japan, and I know that's not a huge deal, but I think it's still a pretty big deal for an independent wrestler to kind of get out there and tour the world. So he's a Canadian wrestler who wrestles in Japan, and you can even say he's an international wrestler by wrestling in the United States. Is a regular championship wrestling from Hollywood, a regular championship wrestling from Arizona. I guarantee he'll have something to do with Silver State Wrestling because that's all Dave Marquez promotion. And then, of course, he was here at NWA Hollywood. Wow. That's a throwback for 12 years ago. He's been involved with NWA Atlanta, the 2 shows, the NWA Power. He was there on both nights. What were your guys' thoughts on this match?
Well, while Devin was vibrating in excitement about it, I definitely think it was a good match. Caleb Conley has impressed me way more than I've seen him when I've seen him live. The D-Man, just, maybe in a couple of years he'll be able to graduate to be the Z-Man. That'll be kind of nice. Huh. But he's Canadian, so I definitely won't hold that against him. But and actually, no, it was a good little match. He showed some promise. It was definitely not a fringe match, unlike his jacket, but it was definitely interesting. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was good. I didn't have any problems with it. I know Conley, I've seen his work before. This other guy, not so much. D-Man or D-Dude or Dude, DKM or whatever.
DK Man.
DK Man, just yeah, it was good. Conley was competitive against Eli Drake.
Yes.
And D-Man was competitive. But I don't, just watching everything, I wouldn't feel like D-Man would necessarily be competitive with Eli Drake.
Right.
And so it's, it was a fun match for what it was. The right guy went over. I didn't have any problems with it. Again, it was kind of some good old-fashioned studio wrestling.
Mm-hmm. My take on a lot of this is we know full well that this show is going to feature a lot of enhancement talent. What I'm enjoying about the show is that we're getting guys who, it's not a squash match. It has the same kind of effect. We had Mr. Caleb Conley take on Eli Drake, and the point of that match was to show that Eli Drake is a winner. In that match, Caleb Conley lost, but he didn't necessarily look like a loser. In yesterday night's match, we had Caleb Conley taking on D-Man Parker, and Caleb went over, but D-Man didn't look like a loser even though he lost, if that makes sense. So I see this as they're setting up building blocks right now. If the NWA ends up deciding to bring back a junior heavyweight title, they're setting up the foundation right there. They're setting up these little building blocks. If the NWA decides to bring a TV title into the picture, they have building blocks. They could put a belt on Caleb Conley and it wouldn't be crazy. And I can appreciate that. I think that's good storytelling. Eli Drake talking to Tim Storm
on the whole Eli Drake and Tim Storm duo.
This is one of those things that wasn't bad by definition, but I didn't necessarily understand. Tim Drake trying to figure out if he's going to retire or not. The man's 53.
Tim Storm.
Excuse me. Been watching too much Batman.
That's what I figured.
Great. But what I was saying was I didn't see why Eli Drake would come out and try to be positive for Tim Storm and encouraging and all that. I acknowledge that in modern day wrestling, heel face roles aren't so clear, but something about it just seemed off to me. It didn't seem like a natural connection to
Eli Drake a face or a heel. All right, it's kind of obvious. Tim Storm is a face, but is Nick Aldous a face or a heel? Is James Storm a face or a heel? The only ones we definitely know are a heel are the Dawsons and that waste of time and space and energy and matter and everything else in Josephus. They're the only obvious heels of the whole group.
What about Latimer and Royce Isaacs?
Latimer and Isaacs, they're kind of faces too in a way. Right. They're tweeners too, and especially with what's going on with the Dawsons. They're not really totally defined.
And again, we're 3 weeks of television, right? Most of these guys are new to the NWA brand. Remember, the last 2 years, it's been Tim Storm, Nick Aldous, Willie Mack for a short time, Colt Cabana, Allison Kay, Jazz, who isn't a part of the program. So getting these clearly defined roles has kind of been an issue. Now, the clearly defined roles, like you mentioned, do we even know if Cabana's faced at this point? I kind of assume so, but in this particular situation, and I felt it that night at the TV taping, and I think I don't want to give too much away, but Eli Drake is kind of a manipulator, if you will. I think I'm not trying to compare him to Jake the Snake by any stretch, but he's certainly pulling the puppet strings of more than just what we see on the surface. And, there was the storyline is that Tim Storm lost the title, right? Or excuse me, lost the opportunity to win that championship, lost an opportunity to ever challenge for that championship. But as Eli Drake pointed out, hell, hey man, don't be a quitter. There's still the tag team division. There's still the North America national championship. There's still an opportunity to win a title. Just because you can't be the granddaddy at the top doesn't mean that you can't still be a winner. But also think about it this way, right? And this was what was going through my head during the show. If Tim Storm is focused on the North American, or I keep saying North American, the national champion, right? Then that means that James Storm has his hands full with Tim Storm, which means that's one more person out of the way for Eli Drake to challenge towards Nick Aldous. So, I mean, I don't know if that's what the storyline they're going at, but that's my interpretation of it. And, there is evidence in the coming weeks of it kind of supporting that, but, nothing's factual. This is just my interpretation of what I see in front of me. The tag team match, and this was something else that I did not like. This is something that bothered me because of storytelling, right? So they introduced us to the Dawsons. Either one of you guys fans of the Dawsons?
Okay, I guess. Nothing special.
I mean, I don't know enough about them, and I haven't seen them enough. I mean, they're kind of a throwback in and of themselves. They're a little bit like the Trevor Murdochs and the others. You don't look at them and go, oh wow, they look like great athletes. But you do kind of look at them and go, yeah, they look like they could probably kick your
right. And
backside.
As we were talking about in the last episode, these guys were part of the Crockett Cup, so it's not like they came out of nowhere. They were in that wild card tag team along with Latimer and Isaacs and the boys from Ring of Honor. So I mean, the foundation was already kind of set back at the Crockett Cup. I'm not a fan of them. I don't really care for Dawsons Creek. Never did, never will. But they put them in the ring with a former world's champion, and at least you could have to call him a top contender for that title. And they immediately shriveled in the spotlight. They did not look like a tag team that was on the verge of challenging for the tag titles. If anything, Drake and Storm kind of took it to them, a duo that hasn't ever teamed before. And the night of the TV tape, and I actually messaged you guys on Facebook and said, oh man, what is going on with this kind of booking? Now we know that makeshift tag teams work all the time, but this, again, it didn't feel right to me. What did you guys actually think of the match?
I agree with you, honestly. You're making a tag team. It's supposed to be an established tag team that's going after the tag team championships, and then you're having them lose to, or even not lose, but just look bad compared to a makeshift tag team. Yes, one of those wrestlers is a former world champion in the NWA. Another wrestler has held major championships in other companies, and is a top contender to the NWA World Championship right now. But two guys who have never teamed, who have no real personal history, who don't have a real friendship, shouldn't be able to take on somebody, a well-oiled machine, or in this case, a well-oiled bulldozing tag team machine. Yeah.
We're a brother.
It's kind of like saying you're putting two guys together to go against the United States Army, and you're going to take two random guys on against two trained soldiers. That's the way it's supposed to be. And you would expect the team that has the ability to know what's going on, and the brothers especially have basically been together most of their entire lives. I think they're even twins, so pretty much their entire life. It wasn't a good idea. It wasn't what I would have done.
I think the biggest thing this match suffered from was limited time. We see matches like this all the time, everywhere. Even back in the old days, it's not necessarily uncommon. But when you have a longer match, then you look at Eli Drake and you look at Tim Storm and you go, well, they're the better wrestlers. And so on an individual basis, they should do well against Dawsons Creek or whoever they were. And but then the point's supposed, break a little bit of kayfabe here. We know the basic layouts of tag team matches. I actually kind of get tired of it. But we know there's the shine, we know there's the heat, and then we know there's the hot tag comeback. And so what we didn't really have good time for in this match was the heat, where they were really using their tag team brother abilities to isolate one of them and just beat them up. And so one of the things about heel face dynamics is that you're always supposed to believe that the heels aren't as good as the faces.
Absolutely.
Because that's why they cheat. The heels cheat because they're not as good as the face. And so there's always a little bit of that dynamic in place. But yeah, the Midnight Express, they could get beat up by any two guys that were put in together who were on top of the card. But then they got that heat section, and they could carry that heat section for 10, 15, 20 minutes, depending on how long the match was. And, you were forced to recognize them as a good tag team. We didn't have that here. We didn't have a moment of going, oh, well, the Dawsons Eli and Tim are better wrestlers, but the Creek boys are, a better tag team.
And I think, so fantasy booking, right? I think I would have used this spot for just about any other tag team on the show because, again, I feel like the pairing of Drake and Storm hurt the credibility of the Dawsons by being so competitive. Now, you could call me crazy, you could say I'm wrong, but just to me in that moment, I'm looking at these two guys who are supposed to be these, like Jaden said, bulldozers, and they didn't look like bulldozers, and a lot of the mystique was gone. That match did nothing to enhance the bulldozer mentality of the Dawsons, but it did everything to kind of hurt their credibility going forward. How am I supposed to take them as a legitimate tag team challenge when, again, I heard everything you said, but to me, you're putting two random guys together who've never teamed before, who have no chemistry whatsoever, and for a good chunk of that match, were just as competitive or better than the Dawsons. And in tag team wrestling, it's a different animal. You don't have to be the better wrestler. You have to be the better technician. Go back to when Arn Anderson, right, was, Arn Anderson and Tully. What did they do? Constant tag outs, working over the arm, working over the leg, working over the body part. That, to me, showed that they didn't have to be the better wrestler. They were the better technician. They knew that if they're going up against someone who is stronger, more powerful, they're going to disable them. Obviously, the Dawsons are not Arn Anderson or Tully Blanchard, but I didn't see them attack a body part. I didn't see them, I mean, yes, towards the end of the match, yes, they did kind of focus in on Tim Storm's back. And then, which led to an even bigger cluster blank, is when everything hit the fan, and then we've got Nick Aldous coming out to check on Tim Storm, and Eli Drake's over there going like, well, what the hell's going on? And just such a random way to end that match. I mean, you're right, guys. I don't think this episode was as good as the first two.
Yeah, I think the only Dawson I like, first of all, is Richard Dawson. Especially on Match Game and Family Feud. Yeah, he's the only Dawson right now that I seem to be any interested in. If they bring him back, I might be. I definitely think that would be something to catch a lot of attention. But otherwise, these Dawsons just. He's not around anymore. Yeah, he's not. That's why.
Okay.
Okay. We're on the same page then. All right. But I don't know. It's just Conley was the highlight of this event, in my opinion. The commercials were not anywhere as entertaining, and they were more distracting. Josephus was a waste of time. Yeah. Honestly, I think the only person that got over stronger on this one was Caleb Konley. Oh, and I'm wrong. And, of course, Eddie Kingston.
Oh, yeah. Kingston, I mean, that promo, did that not make you interested in seeing a return match between the Wild Cards and Kingston and Homicide, or even better yet, a matchup between Homicide and Kingston versus our Dawson boys? I mean, it's certain. I'll say this, man, and I wasn't real familiar with Eddie Kingston before. I mean, I knew who he was, I know what he's capable of, but I didn't know how good he was on the mic. And I mean, I based on that, I'd like to see that match between the Dawsons and I think they're called the Outlaw Inc. I think Outlaw Inc.
Yeah, I you know what? I really just hope Kingston and Homicide humble them and show their dominance. Maybe go through Latimer and I6, even though I do like those guys. Maybe even potentially go through the Rock and Roll Express and be where I believe they should be on the top right now of the NWA. There's just something though. It's something about his eyes. There's I guess they're blue. There's blue eyes of his when he says something. It has this truth factor, this authenticity. He just peers through you, and it catches you. When you look into his eyes, you can see everything he's saying is 100% true, and it adds so much to him.
And I think more so than that, it's he believes what he's saying. DKM, do you have anything you'd like to add on top of that?
Well, I think he nailed it with he believes what he's saying. I mean, the advantage of the NWA studio wrestling are the promos. They're the advantage and the disadvantage. And that is the guys really have a chance to get themselves over by convincing us. There's an old story, with Johnny Valentine that Roddy Piper would tell where Johnny Valentine would go, I can't make you believe that wrestling's real, but I can make you believe that I'm real.
Very
Eddie
much
Kingston comes across that way. I believe he's real. And so, this actually leads to an interesting segue for something I was kind of want to get your guys' opinion on. And Jaden kind of started down the road, which is who would we like to see as tag team champions? I mean, we know the Rock and Roll Express are the current ones. Yeah, spoiler alert. If you haven't read it already in the 900 different places it's been published, spoiler, Rock and Roll Express win the tag team titles at some point. Not likely to be long-term champions. And so who's out there that the NWA can put the tag team titles on? I mean, we talked about, Dawson's were kind of hurt this week. So, Jay, who's out there? Who did you see at the tapings that you go, man, they'd make great champions? And maybe it's the former.
I think if we're just going on who was there, it's the former champions or Outlaw Incorporated, Outlaws Incorporated. I don't know why that's so hard for me to say. Homicide and Kingston, I think, would actually make great tag champions, much to what Jaden was just saying. I also think that perhaps, for me personally, whenever I go to a wrestling show, I feel like I'm scouting for the NWA or scouting for championship wrestling from Hollywood. Whenever I'm at a show, I think, man, that team or this person would be good here. And one of those teams for me was Reno Scum. I really wanted Reno Scum in the NWA. Of course, that changed last week. Bound for Glory, they made their return to Impact. So that's no longer an option. But there are teams out there who I think would make a pretty good, would fit well with the NWA, especially this NWA. And I mean, I know you guys aren't a big fan of the Rock Nest Monsters out in Hollywood, but I think they would be perfect for the tag team division in the NWA. I also think the Soul Burners, or current United Wrestling Network tag team champions, would be a good fit. Now, maybe they're not championship material, but at least having a higher quality, higher caliber tag teams, I think, is only going to benefit everybody in the long run. Jaden, what about you? What tag team do you think that is out there that could make an impact, no pun intended, for the NWA?
Well, I'm going to pun Nintendo's like crazy, but well, that's actually, you know what? You actually kind of unintentionally brought up a good point. While they've done a very good job with the World Championship, they've done a very good job with the National Championship, and they've done a pretty good job with the Women's Championship. The Tag Team Championship has definitely fallen in the category of not very well produced, not very well done. The first champions technically only defended the belts and then lost it. And then the second champions, I think, defended it once and lost it. So twice and lost it. They're actually double the record. And so right now, the current champions, the Rock and Roll Express, they're the hottest tag team in professional wrestling. For positive or negative, it definitely has a lot of people talking about it. And, you know, it's kind of a feel-good moment, especially for somebody who's been watching the R&R Express since the early 80s. But they just haven't really done a great job, in my opinion, with the tag team championships. There's not a lot of focus on it. And I know from experience, I see Dr. Lawrence Zirconium go through it. Tag team wrestling is the hardest, most frustrating thing to get taken care of properly in professional wrestling as a promoter. You not only have to deal with 2 egos, you have to deal with 4 egos to get the match together. And tag team's a dead art, unfortunately. It's slowly, maybe slightly making a comeback, but it's just not what it nearly even come close to what it used to be. The only tag team right now that I think deserves it is probably Outlaws Inc. I just really, really hope they don't do a 4-way for the tag team championship. That's the one thing the NWA does not need, is all those bad booking, lazy booking, multi-man matches. Sometimes I know they happen. Sometimes they happen organically. And sometimes, very rarely, it's a good thing. But most of the time, it's just lazy booking.
I feel like you've read spoilers.
I'm okay with multi-man matches if there's no title at stake.
Okay.
And I prefer elimination to whatever they call it when it's just a one fall and done. I mean, to me, do you really want to damage your championship credibility? Keep having title changes in multi-man matches where the champion doesn't get hit.
Yeah, and you know, as we talk about this and a lack of tag teams, a lack of production for the titles, you know, this can all change on December 14th or 15th or 16th. I don't think they've made an official card yet for the pay-per-view, although a lot of things led up to what would be the pay-per-view show that you'll see over the next 5 weeks of television. I do believe that that is an opportunity for the NWA, and hopefully something that gets addressed, because again, the show, to me, outside of some of the quirks that you guys don't enjoy, I think this show it is really coming together, and I think it really has an old school vibe to it. I really think it is a good alternative to what's out there right now. If you want more indie style wrestling on TV, I mean, you've got All Elite. You want that WWE style? There's like 15 hours of it now on USA, Fox, and the WWE Network and all of that. If you want to watch strong style wrestling, hell, you can go to Access and watch that once a week. There's so much wrestling right now that it is just insane to me. And in an instance where we're talking about tag team wrestling and that being something that might be hurting the brand, there's huge opportunities there. And not to go too crazy here, but the correlation with the National Wrestling Alliance over the years and New Japan Pro Wrestling, I mean, they're bringing New Japan talent now to the United States. They're actually going to do shows and tours.
The NWA has said since day one that they're open for business. To improve this show, there's a lot of opportunity to solidify the roster. And, December 14th, pay-per-view.
Yeah, what is it called again? Into the Fire? The Fire Coke?
I don't think there's extra R's in that fire.
Okay.
What do you guys want to see next from the NWA?
I will stay, for right now, I would like to see an improving of the tag team division and more quality women wrestlers, some depth of challengers maybe for both divisions. I kind of see what's going to happen with the national championship. The world title's still kind of up for grabs. What's going on with that? There's a plethora of challengers. Who knows if there's some new faces that are going to show up at the next television taping. I guess what I want to see is less sports entertainment, less Tuesday Night Titans, and more Georgia Championship Wrestling, more Memphis. I like to see more of what they were doing the first 2 weeks and less what they're doing now this week.
DKM?
Well, of course, I wasn't around to help you guys review the first 2 weeks, so I should point out that I really, really enjoyed them. In fact, first show was almost emotional for me because it had been so long since I had seen that type of wrestling. But I'll start with what I don't want to see. I don't want to see any more titles.
Yeah.
I want them to focus right now on the ones they have. At some point, if they build it up right, they can bring in a junior heavyweight title because they actually have heavyweights for their heavyweight title. You know, sometimes I think the next title should be branded the junior heavyweight title and that other organization. So I'll tell you two things I really did like in this episode. I did like the video clip
I did like that too.
Thunder Rosa. I did think that made her look intriguing and big time, and as a real serious challenger for Allison Kay. And then I like their NWA on tour.
Yeah, right.
That's what they did. I mean, they did the Modest Madness and they did the 3-day pay-per-view in Atlanta, or 3 days of taping in Atlanta, and it was done so well. I don't know who came up with it. Lagana, if that was you, excellent, buddy. I mean, that was, I don't know, it warmed my heart.
And they did also talk about Hollywood too, which was kind of cool. Yeah, that had that old school feel to it, right? That kind of reminded me, like, again, I know that your guys' history is a little bit different than mine. I grew up with the WWE because I'm in Southern California, and by the time I was old enough, the labels were already gone. The shop was already closed, and we didn't get a lot of NWA out here. So it was always Saturday mornings with Superstars, and you'd get that, come see the WWE in your town, or WWF in your town. And I kind of felt like that was a little bit too homage to the old, at least the old days for the WWF. I don't know if the NWA did the same thing.
Oh, that was very Georgia Championship Wrestling, and I'm sure the other, Championship Wrestling from Florida and Mid Atlantic all did it too. But the style, the way they said it, the way they promoted it, the background screen, that was Georgia Championship Wrestling.
That's great.
If Lagana or Kingston or anybody, I'm sorry, Lagana or Corgan is listening, bring back where they would do the interviews and sometimes roll out that steel cage to talk about a steel cage match like they used to do in the Mid-Atlantic territory. I used to love that too.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, there was the face side, which was always blue, and the heel side, which was always red. And then when they were to be a cage match, they'd have that cage match with the wrestler behind it talking about the cage match coming up at the Omni or the Raleigh Civic Center or whatever.
Well, God willing, I think we're too early for any cage match planning. But again, we're only in week 3 of television. But I think that's going to wrap it up.
That's going to do the show now. We got to go because I know short attention span, and we're well over our time limit here. So, again, thanks everybody for tuning in. You can follow this show at The Alliance Blog. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Tumblr, YouTube, Twitch. And we appreciate all the support you guys have given us throughout the years. Of course, you can always buy this shirt at Amazon.com. Links will be provided. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you at the matches.